How accountants broke the NFL, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brett Coleman. Okay, so I have done probably 5 hours of talk about the salary cap and about the NFL contracts, and specifically how the Saints have manipulated the contracts and the salary cap and kind of how they push money around. Now that the Eagles have won the Super Bowl, it's becoming kind of glamorized that now there's no cap hell. Now this is just how you're supposed to do it, right? This is all good now. It's all in a positive light. It's amazing what winning can do. All right, so we're going to go ahead and watch this. Look, if you want to watch a bunch of my other stuff on specifically how the Saints do it, I have like an hour-long masterclass on how Mickey Loomis does what he does. I just did a video a week ago talking about how similar the Saints and the Eagles are. Go check those out if you want more of like a really specific Saints kind of breakdown.
It all started 21 years ago in 2004. The reigning NFL MVP waited 6 whole years for his rookie contract to expire before signing a 7-year extension that was worth the most money ever. And yet, not a single dime of his base salary was guaranteed. Then came 2009. A young gun over in San Diego signed yet another big money extension on his rookie deal that featured 2 things that rarely, if ever, had been seen before for a contract of that magnitude: a really big option bonus and rolling guaranteed salaries. And finally, there was 2016. A legendary figure down in the Big Easy was days away from the start of the season, and it was the last year of his contract. He wanted a long-term new deal, of course, but the Saints were down to their last $300K in cap space earlier that offseason, and they were unsure if they could do that kind of lengthy commitment for an older quarterback with degrading arm strength. However, as the negotiating deadline neared, the Saints front office did have an idea for how to both make that quarterback happy and give themselves much-needed flexibility. Enter the contract that changed everything.
It's happy signing day if you're Drew Brees. Drew Brees and the Saints have reached an agreement on a contract extension. It'll be announced as a 5-year deal, but Brees is contractually committed to the Saints for only the next 2 seasons.
The Saints gave Drew Brees a 1-year extension to have his contract run through the end of the 2017 season, and stuffed not 1, not 2, but 3 voidable years on the back of it, effectively making a contract that actually had more fake years on it than real ones.
So void years, it's always something to pay attention to in contracts. We just saw Alvin Kamara have a void year that was, well, it never got to that, but we saw where the Saints had to restructure his deal because the last year of his deal was like a $16 million a year deal with 0 money guaranteed. It's like, okay, well, he's obviously that's strictly paperwork. Like, he's obviously not going to play under those conditions.
It was genius. Brees' cap hit got lowered for 2016. He got his guarantees that he wanted for 2017, but most importantly, that deal bought everybody time. After that successful pivot, Saints GM Mickey Loomis ran wild with the concept. Void years had been around since the early 90s, of course, but no team had ever used them like this before. Nor had they ever embraced a philosophy of riding a knife's edge year after year and using restructures, extensions, and void years to get out of cap trouble over and over again while holding the roster together. For 7 straight seasons after that Brees deal, New Orleans was in the bottom 10 in available cap space at the.
All right, so I'm really going to let Brett kind of handle a lot of this because I've talked about it at length. This is already a long video. I don't want to make this a 2-hour video. The basics are pretty simple. The NFL is the bank. All right, teams are the people who go to the bank and they want loans. All right. The NFL is telling them 2 things. 1, you don't have to pay interest. And 2, as time goes on, you will have more money in your account. All right, we know those 2 are true. We know that it is true that as time goes on, TV deals will get bigger, the NFL will make more money, they will have more cap, the salary cap will go up. It happens all the time. It literally happened like 6 months ago. Okay, so if you're a team and you're looking around your roster and you're like, well, you're telling me that I can just take these loans out, tack on huge numbers on the end of it, and with the leverage of not actually having to pay the interest or whatever. There's no interest, so I can just choose to pay later instead of right now. If that could happen in real life, if you could take money from the bank now and they could say, well, do you want to pay now or do you want to pay later when you have more money in your account? You would always say later, right? Like, let me take the capital now, invest the capital in the players that I think are good, keep that together, try and win, and then I'll worry about the actual bill later on. Another example is, let's say you're a real estate developer, and let's say you have $100,000 in your account, or let's say you have $1 million in your account. No interest, you can pay later, okay? The best thing you can do is buy as many houses as possible, drain your account to where you have like a cent left, right? And then let those investments pay off. You don't get anything for buying one house for $100,000 and having $900,000 sitting in your account. There's no benefit to that. You would be much better off buying 9.5 houses for $950,000 and having the $50,000 on the razor's edge to where, yeah, you don't have a lot of money to maneuver, but you got all these investments now with no interest and no real drawback.
Start of every league year, but they did make the playoffs back to back to back to back in 4 of those years. The plan was sort of working until, it wasn't. For a team like the Saints that was operating under a fiscal philosophy that looked like it was conceived by an options trader on bath salts, the pandemic was devastating. The lost revenue for the NFL from the 2020 season resulted in the only time in the last decade and a half where cap space actually went down league-wide year over year.
Yeah, so when you're doing this strategy, the main drawbacks, or not even drawbacks, but just the main risks, is the NFL not making money, right? The cap not going up, which took a global pandemic, or the players you are investing in aren't good. And I'm using aren't good kind of loosely here. They can be not good because you just invested in the wrong players. They can be not good because they got older and their production dropped. They can be not good because they got injured and all of a sudden your money is not seeing any of that value. All right, same thing with the houses. The only way that's not going to work is if the houses are not producing. Your investments are not producing. If a house burns down, if a house, you can't rent it, if, whatever the case may be, if there's a global pandemic and no one has money to spend on houses, right? Like any of those kind of things. As long as everything stays the course, this strategy is the move. You can look at the Saints, you can look at the Eagles, who do the exact same thing. The Eagles, the players they're investing in are awesome, right? They just won the Super Bowl. It's all working. The Saints, the players they invested in, Michael Thomas, basically medically retired. Ryan Ramczyk, literally medically retired. Cam Jordan got older. Demario Davis got older. Taysom Hill got hurt. Like, all of a sudden, you start seeing the two, like, on one side, it's like, okay, this is how it works. This is how you can get punished. Now, if you look at the Saints before they got punished, look at them when they have Drew Brees and Sean Payton, that whole era, you can see exactly how it worked, where they can keep all these insane players all together and just rock and roll. Now, then you can talk about draft picks and all that, but that's a different video for a different time.
Loomis's entire cap management strategy relied on the cap continuously going up so he could just kick the proverbial can down the road every single offseason, knowing full well that the following year's cap growth would give him space to maneuver again. But once the cap went down, Loomis had pretty much no space to quickly replenish a rapidly aging roster, and everything pretty much fell apart overnight. The Saints haven't been back to the playoffs since then, and next year in 2026, not even this year, next year, is going to be the first time in about half a decade where the Saints might possibly have a decently healthy cap situation. I guess we'll see, but...
So I'll say this too. I told you I wasn't going to pause the video a lot, but now, here we are. The Saints... luckily, they are going to get out of this kind of quick. And it really should only take about a year and a half-ish for this to all kind of be chill, counting last year. All right, like we've talked about it, by 2027, it's all done. We're so far beyond the salary cap hell, and we're so far past that. So we had never seen, up until right now, okay, well, what happens when Like, what happens when you can't kick the can down anymore? Like, how long does it take to reset? How long does it take to kind of fix the books or whatever? We had no clue. And a lot of people, I mean, we covered it extensively, assumed the Saints would be in salary cap hell for a long time. And they would be fiscally just cooked. But because it all kind of timed at the same time, they hit rock bottom, and then it's all going to kind of wash away. So by somewhere in the neighborhood of 2025, like mid 2024, 2025 into 2026, however you want to count that, is like salary cap hell for the Saints. By 2026 and a half to 2027, the Saints should be clear.
Suffice to say, the rebuild has been a very slow and painful process. But in that pain, there was a lesson. Not for the Saints, of course, but for all the other GMs around the league that were watching Mickey Loomis ride the lightning for all those years, who now had to get creative with their own roster management to deal with that temporary dip in cap space from the pandemic. New Orleans in the late 2010s was the test case for everyone. They were the proof of concept that NFL teams could spend money to save money. And from that proof of concept, an even better blueprint was born. If you want to build a dynasty in this league, cash is king.
Got something special going on. That was important to me to take that approach with it.
But the way it's structured, the way it's paid out, the way the guarantees work, he could have made it harder. Deeper into it, he's going to be underpaid.
Right. We got to see this again. This kid is special, man. This. You didn't even think to do that.
I don't mean to rub it in, Giants fans. Wow. But really?
Play the guitar on MTV. That ain't working.
Skill positions in Philly.
We got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. It's crazy.
You have Pro Bowlers at every starter on. Really, it's not even the skill.
Baby.
Every starter is a Pro Bowler.
To me, the offensive line for the Eagles, how about the difference when they would go back and forth and then the Eagles would come back and you'd be like, well, they're just not generating any pressure. Jalen's sitting back there having a hot dog.
When you've got the lines of scrimmage taken care of to the level the Eagles do, it's going to be hard to beat you. It's just the machine is humming right now, you know?
So things go in cycles, right? Really in life. Like, the case studies and the prototype or proof of concept and all that, like they talked about the Saints financially was the proof of concept. I think the Eagles roster-wise is the proof of concept, where now you build inside out, now you dominate the line of scrimmage, now you play a certain style, and you're seeing that kind of trickle into the NFL. You're seeing that kind of become the new blueprint of how teams operate. Even the style that the Eagles do, like think about 10 years ago, what was the style of the NFL, right? Throw the ball all over the place. You know, now it's this like really smothering. It's almost like the UFC, where now it's like this like really wrestling dominant, smothering, just kind of ground and pound. The Eagles kind of do that. The Eagles were one of the first teams that were willing to say, no, we'll just hold on to the ball for 10 minutes. Like you will have 2 possessions in the second half. We are just going to run the football, kill the clock, go for it on 4th and 1. The Eagles do it with the tush push, but other teams do it in different ways. The Commanders do it not with a tush push, but they are just as successful, maybe not, probably even better on 4th down. And they just completely choke the life out of the other team. You know, the Commanders will have 16, 17, 18 play drives and not worry about it. The Eagles, same thing. The Eagles will go on 10, 11, 12-minute drives, and it just is what it is.
That's the way you do it.
I think it goes without saying that a lot has changed from 2004 to 2025. The salary cap has risen a whopping 346% over that time period, while the top of the quarterback market has exploded even more and risen by 408%. What began with a reigning MVP not getting a single dime of guaranteed salary has evolved into Brock Purdy signing a contract that not only when adjusting for inflation has a higher percentage of the cap than Peyton's first blockbuster deal, but it also has a whopping 69% of the total contract being guaranteed. Year after year, we see quarterbacks shatter the market with jaw-dropping numbers that far exceed anything that past generations received, even when adjusting for the growth of the cap. Monster guarantees, monster signing bonuses, and of course, monster cap hits. How did we even get here? Why has the quarterback position outscaled the entire rest of the sport? And perhaps even more importantly, how the hell are teams even making this work anymore? I mean, logically speaking, every single team that signs a deal like this should be crippled, right? Well, not exactly.
Well, it also, not only are they not crippled, but they're not even punished. Like if you look at the Broncos, who made a huge mistake with the Russell Wilson contract. If you look at the Browns with Deshaun Watson and their contract, and like the Russell Wilson thing should have set the Broncos back, a decade. Like not even just Russell Wilson, but hiring Nathaniel Hackett as your head coach, trading for Russell Wilson, extending him for that contract. They got out of that entire situation, similar to the Saints, in like a year and a half. And now the Broncos could care less about any of that. They don't feel the heat of that really at all anymore, which is crazy. You make them the GM is still there. Like the GM who did all that is still there. And the Broncos are going to the playoffs, and they have Bo Nix as their quarterback, and they have Sean Payton as their coach, and people love them going into the season. So not only are the contracts not crippling teams, but the mistakes aren't crippling teams.
When looking at not the inflated average annual value numbers that get posted by the media every single time a contract gets announced, by the way, fun fact, those numbers are pretty much bullshit.
Yeah, like T. Higgins' contract was one that just came out where the initial number is not even close to how it's going to play out. And if you really stripped it down, it almost is like a one-year deal. So, yeah, those are all complete. It's the thing with the contracts is now that they're so maneuverable. Like the teams, we just saw this with Derek Carr's contract, where on the surface, it's a 4-year, $100 million contract, whatever. You strip it down, you're like, well, the last 2 years, the team has ways to get out. So really, it's a 2-year deal. This is how much is guaranteed up front. Like the rest can be voided. Okay, so then that makes it whatever. Like you got to do so much more math to figure out what these deals actually are.
But if you don't factor in AAV and you're just looking at cap hits and you're looking at cap percentages every single year on these new money quarterback deals, they're actually a lot more team friendly than they might seem. Take Trevor Lawrence's deal as an example. When he signed his 5-year, $275 million contract extension that valued him at $55 million in AAV last offseason, with $200 million guaranteed, by the way, a lot of people got pretty big sticker shock on that. I mean, after all, what has Trevor Lawrence done to deserve being at the top of the market in AAV? And that $55 million average represented a whopping 21.5% of the salary cap at the time of signing, which far exceeded Manning's blockbuster 2004 rookie extension that was valued at 17.6% of the cap at signing. Manning was the reigning MVP at the time, while Lawrence was, let's be honest, far from that. So bogging down the rest of the roster by spending over 20% of the cap on a good but not elite quarterback seemed insane, maybe not even good on paper. Except if you actually look at how the Lawrence deal is structured, he never even gets close to taking up that much of the Jags salary cap over the next 4 seasons. In fact, from this coming year in 2025 all the way until 2028, he never even gets to 13% of the cap. The Jags have plenty of space to maneuver around and build the team any way that they want to. And the reason for that, again, is the structure of the deal. Those details are what matters. The reported value of it on the surface, that $55 million number, it's basically fake, honestly. It's a vanity number. It's almost meaningless. Just think of modern quarterback contracts, and really all modern high-dollar NFL contracts for any position, as you would a volume of water, with the water itself representing the total amount of money to be paid on the deal. The vertical axis here can represent a cap hit, while the horizontal axis represents the surface area of years that a contract lasts for. Again, on paper, not all the time in real life. If you put 2 cups of water, or in this case, 2 cups of money, in a narrow container, it's not very wide, and therefore not that many years of surface area, so that water's going to be deeper. That depth represents the size of the average cap hit. But in a wider container, that same 2-cup volume of water will be much more shallow because it has more room to spread out. That represents smaller cap hits over a longer period of time. And this entire visual is why void years are so powerful.
Yeah, so you also, in this same metaphor, you would also know that you will always get a bigger, like the actual cup is always going to get bigger. So that's 2 big incentives of why they create these they stretch out the deal, whether they stretch it out with bonuses or options or whatever, because the money they're going to get is going to be more, right? Which in this case is the cup.
Lawrence has 2 void years, or dummy years, on the back end of his deal, which basically gave the Jaguars a 9-year surface area to work with to spread the cap hits out from 2024, which is when the deal was originally signed, through the 5th-year option year, which is right now in 2025, to the extra 5 years of the extension on top of that, and then finally the 2 void years on the back end that are not real contract years. They're just there for accounting purposes. Trevor's signing bonus was relatively low, at least by modern standards, at only $37.5 million, which was barely over Peyton's signing bonus from 2 decades ago. And that was purposeful, because signing bonuses can be prorated over 5 years. So from 2024 to 2028, that upfront real cash flow that has already hit Lawrence's personal bank account, that's only going to cost the Jags $7.5 million against the cap per year over the next 5 years. Additionally, Lawrence's salaries are extremely low through 2028 as well, so those don't even add a lot to his cap hit either. Now, at this point, you might be wondering, okay, well then if Lawrence has a low signing bonus and low salaries, how the hell is he making $55 million a year? Well, again, he's not. He's actually making $43 million a year in terms of overall averages across the entire surface of the deal. And starting this year in 2025, he has 4 straight seasons of rolling option bonuses that are $35 million each. And here's the kicker, those do not count as $35 million cap hits immediately. Remember, option bonuses, just like signing bonuses, can also be prorated over a 5-year period. And they can stack on top of each other. So
this is something to remember whenever you see deals get restructured. And when they get restructured, you always see the same thing. The verbiage is always that the salary was converted to an option, which was then prorated over 2 years. They chunk the money, and then they chunk it again over the course of however many years they restructure contracts. So you can always tell when a contract is going to be restructured, because just like in Lawrence's, you saw he was making... it was like, what was it? It's like 4 million, 4 million, 10 million, 11 million, 53 million, 50 million, 50 million. Okay, well, those last 3, there's going to be a restructure before those last 3. So those can be just completely, like those are fugazi years.
The 2025 option bonus is
just like, again, Derek Carr's, where I think Derek Carr was entering, like we were staring down the barrel of him making like $60 million or $51 million or something. And it's like, all right, well, the Saints they never intend to pay him $20 million, $20 million, and then $51 million in that 3rd year. So you know the restructure's coming. You know what's about to happen. In the Saints, I mean, it was a little different in the same situation because of the retirement and all that stuff. But and we kept hammering that home this before he retired, because everyone kept saying, well, they're going to have to pay him this, this, and this. And it's like, well, they are not going to have to pay him this, this, and this, because they're going to, take a hammer to that and redo the entire thing.
Again, $35 million in real life going into Lawrence's actual bank account up front, but it only counts as an additional $7 million against the cap for the next 5 years. And then you add on the same option bonus again next year to the stack. That's another $7 million to make it 14, and then another the year after that to make it 21, and then the year after that to make it 28 in 2028. And here's where the use of void years is key, because when that last 2028 option bonus hits, those 2 void years stretch the available surface area to 5 years out from the time that bonus hits. So you can use those 2 dummy years as just extra fake surface area to spread the money out.
Now, you may be sitting here looking at this like, brother, I don't have an MBA. All right, I didn't go to Tulane. Makes one of us. But all this is saying, in a really basic way, is that the salary cap is fake. The contracts are fake. The number you're seeing is fake. It's all fugazi. It's all monopoly money. It's all made up. So, just like we've said, I can't even. It has to have been 2 years now from when I was saying the salary cap is fake. This is all whatever. Don't get bogged down in it. And now we're here staring directly at this. This looks complicated. This is a lot of math and accounting and whatever. But all you got to know is that all of this salary cap stuff is not real. They have, until the NFL changes it, which I wouldn't be surprised at all if they changed it pretty soon, because I think if every team is manipulating the cap and it's as widespread as it is, I don't think the NFL necessarily wants that to take place. But for right now, the one key thing to take away is all those like salary cap websites and all that you can filter and see who's in the red and who's not in the red. They just don't mean anything.
This structure for the cash flow gives these stacked bonuses room to come down gracefully and therefore keep the total cap hits low.
Right. This is exactly what happened. I mean, not with a singular player, but this is basically what the Saints ended up doing. Is they hit this critical mass of, okay, we're in some cap problems, but they did descend pretty gracefully because of all the machinations that they had built into all of the contracts. And you saw them all kind of land at the same time in a pretty easy way. And they were able to get out of it pretty quick. Same with the Broncos, same with everyone else, where it seems really bad, but the contracts and the whole strategy is built to where even at the end, it's a pretty seamless descent.
At least relatively low. Add in those lower salaries, a low signing bonus, and the standard $500K workout bonuses, and you have real cash flows in Lawrence's bank account every single year in the high 30s to low 40 millions, but his cap hits don't even get over 50 million until 2029. And by then, he's probably going to get extended anyway, just to lower those hits all.
Right. By then, exactly what we were talking about, where when you see those huge hits and those huge numbers, it'll all get restructured and extended, and they'll just keep kicking the can
all over again by doing the exact same type of structure. So many quarterbacks that have been extended since 2020 have similar kinds of deals in place to keep their hits low. Jordan Love got 3 void years to spread the pain, except he had a bigger signing bonus but less option bonuses. It effectively did the same thing though. His cap hits never even get over 42 million for another 4 years on a deal that's technically worth 55 a year in compensation, except again, it's not.
And remember, the percentages of the cap that it affects will always go down because the cap will always go up. So if it affects, should make numbers up, if it affects 20% of the cap in 4 or 5 years, you can assume that number is going to drop pretty dramatically. So if you have $100 in your bank account and you have a $10 bill, that's 10% of your account, right? Well, if you can wait and pay it when you have 20% of or if you can wait and pay it when you have $200 in your account, you would absolutely do that because it's such a less of a percentage that you are paying of your total net worth.
Tua also has 2 void years on his deal, and Miami can get out of that one in only 2 years from now if they want to. It really doesn't hurt them at all. Kirk Cousins got 3 void years in Atlanta last year. Burrow got 3 void years. Lamar has 2 void years. Jalen Hurts has 4 void years, and literally 6 straight seasons of just him getting paid in bonuses. He got a $255 million deal, and I'm not even joking. Only 3% of it is salary. It's fucking ridiculous at this point. But it works. Like, I'll hand it to him. It works. And of course, when talking about all the quarterback deals signed since 2020, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the elephant in the room. Arguably the catalyst for all the borderline money laundering we've seen in the quarterback market over the last 5 years. And I think you know who I'm talking about.
With breaking news, NFL.
So one of the best deals ever, one of the most team-friendly deals ever is Patrick Mahomes. On the surface, he's getting paid $500 million, right? But the Chiefs know that with the landscape of what's going on, by the time this contract, by the time they have to really start paying him, as they continue to pay him, he'll just be getting more valuable and valuable because the deal will inherently get cheaper and cheaper.
Network's Michael Silver is reporting that the Kansas City Chiefs and the Super Bowl champion quarterback Patrick Mahomes have come to an agreement on a 10-year contract extension.
Now, what's this do for Mahomes? One, pays him a ton of money. Two, it allows the Chiefs and Mahomes to basically handle him and continue playing chess with the salary cap and his own contract to free up money to year in and year out pay other players and go get other people to help him win. We've seen Brees do that. We've seen Tom Brady do that throughout his entire career, where they say, you know what, do what you got to do with my contract, go get me help. Move the money around somewhere else.
That could keep the Super Bowl MVP in KC through the 2031 season.
You have to understand, at the time of the Patrick Mahomes deal, Russell Wilson was the highest paid player in the NFL at $35 million AAV. Technically, we've established that number doesn't really mean anything, but again, let's just use it for argument's sake. $35 million AAV, highest paid player. Mahomes got 45 for 10 years. Mickey Loomis walked so that Brett Veach could set the land speed record, apparently. And
Brett just said it. The Chiefs and the Eagles are doing the exact same thing the Saints have done, and no one cares. And if you go and look at the salary cap trackers, the Chiefs now are almost always in the red at a certain point because of this. But as we know, it's all fake. And then they move stuff around. Eventually, they're free of quote-unquote salary cap hell. Bada bing, bada boom, realest guy in the room.
And naturally, the reason why the deal was for $45 million a year for a decade was A, as a form of future-proofing, because Mahomes quickly established himself as arguably, at the time, the best quarterback in the league, and the Chiefs didn't want to just have to keep redoing his deal over and over again as other guys got paid, so they just set the bar extremely high right out the gate. And B, again, they wanted a very large surface area full of rolling.
You could it's only been a couple of years, but you could argue, I don't even think it's really an argument, but Patrick Mahomes is underpaid at this point.
Guaranteed roster bonuses and high salaries that could be converted into signing bonuses that get prorated, and they needed room on the back end of the deal to do all of that and keep the cap hits manageable. Nearly 20 years ago, the Falcons tried to do a similar thing with Michael Vick when he signed a 10-year deal, which then got cut short for obvious reasons, but the principle was the same. Really, the only major difference between the philosophies of both KC and Atlanta for how they handled the Mahomes and Vick extensions, and the philosophy of the Eagles for how they handled the Hurts extension, is that KC and Atlanta spread the pain out by just doing 10-year contracts of real years, while Philly spread the pain out by doing a normal contract and then just tacking a shitload of void years on the back end. They both created large surface areas, they just did it a different way. Though, I guess if we're being honest, the Eagles are very different than the rest of the league for a particular reason, and that particular reason is a rabbit hole that I didn't expect this episode to go down when I started writing it, but we also kind of have to go down that rabbit hole together in order for you to understand everything else I'm about to talk about. So forgive me. The short version of this, the Eagles are insane. And the long version is, the Eagles are still insane, and also here's a 6-minute explanation for how. Somewhere along the line here, Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman fully bought into the shenanigans that the Saints pioneered, and they started doing this void year heavy style of contract for everybody, not just Jalen Hurts. Like, if you look at all of the Eagles' top contracts, they all have 3 or even 4 void years on the back end. They don't just do it for quarterbacks. So basically, none of their top players.
So I hate that this is 45 minutes into the video because no one's going to see it. Just viewership will drop off at that point. But do you see the difference in narrative where the Eagles are doing what the Saints did, but they're doing it at an even crazier rate and even more reckless. How many times have you heard the Eagles are in salary cap hell? You do not hear that. The Eagles have more dead cap hit, or however you want to phrase it, next year than the Saints do. No one cares because the Eagles just won the Super Bowl and they're the best team in the NFL, and that's it. No one cared that the Saints were doing this for 15 years when Drew Brees was there, right? You're only in salary cap hell. You're only crazy when it doesn't work. The Eagles can keep the players that they have, like they said earlier in the video. Like they can have this roster because they can pay all these players because they are doing the contracts that the Saints created. It's all the same thing. And if you don't understand the cap and you don't understand kind of this, how teams are manipulating the cap, and you just look at red or green and you just filter by who's got the most money and you just filter by dead cap and all that, then you can get confused that you think having more cap or having more money or whatever is better. But in reality, it's not.
Ever have cap hits that reflect the top of the market, even though all of
the argument is basically boiled down to having good players is better than having money.
Real cash flows into their bank accounts are at the top of the market. And conveniently, most of their cap maneuvering all happens to be sunsetting at around the exact same time.
What did we just talk about with the Saints? All of the cap maneuvering, all of the sunsetting was all happening between 2025 and 2027. If you look at all of the contracts, they are almost all, the older contracts, the bigger contracts, are almost all sunsetting in 2026. Almost every single one of them. That is not on accident.
And again, that is for a very particular reason. Jalen's last real year is 2028 before all these void years slam home with a combined $97.5 million dead cap hit in 2029. And remember, just because a cap hit is thrown into a group of void years, that doesn't mean that the hit doesn't exist. It just means that all of the spread out hits slam home together at once as soon as that first void year triggers. So that's why the 2029 cap hit is so high, but it's not just Hurts that hits in that year. Landon Dickerson, also in 2029, has a $35 million dead cap hit from all of his void years slamming home. Lane Johnson, that same year, has a $30 million dead cap hit, also from his void years. Jordan Mailata, same thing, 2029, $35.7 million dead cap hit. Devonta Smith, 2029, $35.8 million dead cap hit. Saquon, again, 2029, $32.5 million dead cap hit. Even Jake Elliott, the fucking kicker, $8.6 million dead cap hit in, you guessed it, 2029. At least Zach Bond's different. He has a $24.8 million dead cap hit by 2028 when all of his void years slam home. And then finally, both A.J. Brown and Cam Jurgens have a $53 million dead cap hit and a $28.7 million dead cap hit, respectively, in 2030. All told, it's around $381.6 million in void years slamming home, all between 2028 and 2030. Even the Eagles could not eat that much dead cap in such a short time period. Like, it's not even remotely possible. But here's the twist. They're not going to. If all goes to plan, most of these deals are likely going to be extended again with short-term real years that have a ton of void years on the back end, just like that famous 2016 Drew Brees deal.
It'll all look the exact same. Low salary, high prorated bonuses pushed off into years to where they're getting, they're taking the hit over the course of however many years. It's going to be the exact same thing.
And that's going to be done to ease the pain and give the franchise's cap situation a soft landing into 2030 and beyond. I cannot possibly emphasize this enough, but that year is everything. Like, not just for the Eagles, but for everybody. The Eagles' entire cap management strategy today, and I would argue a lot of other teams' entire cap management strategy today, is built around all of their plans for 2030. And that is not an accident, because you know what happens after the 2029 season? The NFL gets to exercise their opt-out clause for the media rights distribution deal, meaning CBS, Fox, NBC, all those deals go away. everybody has to go back to the table and renegotiate for 2030 and.
So what's that mean? If you've been watching, it means bigger deal, more money. They can more stuff in the pot to play
beyond.
with.
And, kind of side tangent here, because Nielsen recently adjusted how they calculate their ratings, across the board, I'm talking across the entire industry, every genre of TV, ratings are up 5 to 40%. Not because more people are watching, but more so because more people are getting accurately counted by Nielsen. So everybody's ratings have skyrocketed, including the NFL.
So what can you do now? The NFL can come to the table in negotiations and say, our ratings are blank % higher. And we were getting paid this, so now we got to be paid this.
So we're pretty sure this new deal that gets negotiated for 2030 is going to be worth, as one esteemed economist put it recently, a metric fuckload. Over the last 3 media rights distribution deals, the average first-year jump in cap space in the new deal is 13.6%. And the largest cap growth we ever saw was a 19.3% year-over-year growth. The cap right now is $279.2 million, but the 2030 cap could possibly be between $430 and $450 million. And the Eagles know this.
Every team knows it. The book is out. Like I said, this is not something that's new. This is something that's been being done by really good teams for a long time now. You think these guys don't know that? Look at this chart. Look at where the money is going. Like, look at this. And it took COVID. If it wasn't for COVID, this would be even higher. So teams are looking at this and they're like, why the hell would I pay my players now?
Their owner, Jeffrey Lurie, comes from a film and television production background. He is well aware, more than most, of what is coming down the pipe in these rights negotiations. So as far as what the cap hits are projected to be and what the dead money hits are projected to be based on when all these void years are slamming home, I don't really think the Eagles care. Like, I honestly don't.
None of these teams care. Why would they care?
Think they care at all. Lurie sold an 8% stake in the team just last year to raise $660 million in liquid capital to fund all of these contracts. Most owners cannot do this. Like, they can't even dream of it. Even Lurie himself couldn't dream of it before he sold a stake in the team because he needed all of that liquidity. And as far as his net worth and, his equity in the team, and if he lost money doing this because he's giving all of his money to the players, here's a fun little dirty secret from the world of the ultra wealthy. Every dime that Lurie has spent building the super team, he's already made back. The Eagles today, after winning the Super Bowl, are more valuable than they were a year ago, to the point where 92% of the Eagles right now is worth more than 100% of the Eagles right before he sold his stake. So his net worth has actually gone up. He basically just got a whole bunch of free money to build a super team and win a Super Bowl, and he's still just as rich, if not richer. Like, this whole scheme is brilliant, because on paper, there's kind of not really a downside. Spend money, win games, make even more money, and then just do it all over again. And when you look around the NFL, every single team has paid attention to what Philly has done here. A lot of them are going to try to replicate it. Some of them might try to get it banned.
Now, where, like, you're going to sit, I'm sure the next question is, okay, well then why doesn't every team do this? Well, the next part of this, like I said earlier in the video, is you do have to get it right of who you are investing in. If you invest in the wrong quarterback or the wrong players, or you're drafting the wrong players, or your roster isn't good enough, there's injuries or whatever, like, this doesn't work. You have to, what's really important is not how much you invest, it's who you invest in. All right. Yes, you need to use the blueprint of maxing out the credit cards, but if you max out, if using the bank example, if you take a $100,000 interest-free loan that's broken up over the next 10 years or whatever, and person A, 2 people get one, person A invests all of it in Enron, person B invests all of it in NVIDIA, it doesn't matter the financial vehicle that they got the money, it matters what they did with it. The person who invested in Enron, bad news, right? Person who invested in NVIDIA, yeah, that interest-free loan broken up over 10 years, you made it back easily, right? Like, you made it tenfold. So that is the difference. That's where the Eagles right now look like geniuses, because they have invested it and drafted really well. the Saints looked like geniuses when they invested it and drafted really well around 2016, 2017, where all of a sudden you're looking around, it's like, damn, they have, Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Drew Brees. Their defense is the best defense in the NFL. Marshawn Lattimore, like, this team is sweet. This team's awesome, right? Well, you see what can happen, okay? So you draft well, you invest in the right players, you get the right infrastructure of the team, you use these manipulations financially, and yeah, what the Eagles are doing right now is what can happen.
If they don't have the liquidity to do it, and they also don't want to sell a stake in their team, and I think there's a couple franchises that qualify for that description, but I don't know what the league is going to do. Like, maybe they'll let teams keep doing it, maybe they'll ban it. I have no idea.
I don't think they got to.
All I really know is this. For now, in the modern NFL, the salary cap is only as real as you allow it to be.
Yeah. So, great video. Yeah, I mean, fantastic stuff from Brett there. But, like, after watching this whole thing, how ridiculous does it sound for the last however many years when all of these Saints media, radio people and YouTubers and TV hosts or whatever have all been saying the Saints are in salary cap hell. Like, now that you look at it, and I know I've done videos on my channel that's explained this, but now that you see it through other people's channels, and now you're starting to see this kind of acceptance, how ridiculous does it sound? And can you believe that we were going through that? Can you believe that we were subjected to, and we still are in a way, of people still saying, oh, well, salary cap hell, oh, well, kicking the can down the road, oh, well, that's all bad. And then you look around and you're like, well, actually, it's kind of the move, right? So it is what it is. I mean, I think anyone that is still saying salary cap hell, whether they're talking about the Eagles, the Saints, the Chiefs, whoever, they just flat out don't get it. And they just flat out don't understand how it works. And they do not understand the financial vehicle, and they don't understand how exactly the manipulation is taking place. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.